Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. I'm sure most of you have heard already. It has been announced that Ryan Garcia will face Rukiya Anpo in an exhibition bout on December 30th in Japan. We knew this was coming. I wondered how the New York State Athletic Commission would feel about it, because the whole point of suspending Ryan is preventing him from making money as a boxer, a penalty for breaking the rules and testing positive for a banned substance. But is fighting in an exhibition match a way out? Is that a loophole? Is a boxing license required
For an exhibition match in Japan.
where the New York State Athletic Commission obviously have no jurisdiction? Ryan Garcia himself took to his social media and stated, I've been quiet for some time, but I've been cooking on some plans before my actual return to the ring. Here is the plan before April. Exhibition in December in Japan against the guy who fought an aging Manny Pacquiao and tried to knock him out, and then I go after Jake for Uncle Mike.
Ryan has spent so much of this year playing the heel. Does he intend to play the hero in the next one?
Irrespective of whether you like Ryan Garcia or not, or Jake Paul or not, a fight between them would be big. It would be major if they could put it together. The major stumbling block, however, is the weight. Jake is basically a cruiserweight, whereas Ryan...
What's he, a welter?
We know he doesn't walk around at welter. I'd say Ryan's walk-around weight might be somewhere in between middle and super middle. So how do you work that out? Because that's still a lot of weight.
Incredible that Ryan Garcia will be making his ring return all before Devin Haney, who's not suspended.
And before this year is out to boot. This accents what I told you about Devin, that he's pissing away the time, and he shouldn't. The sooner he gets back in the ring, the sooner he can put distance between himself and that horrible showing against Ryan, irrespective of what the circumstances were. The sooner you get out there, the sooner it becomes a distant memory.
Bottom line, he should have fought.
It's crazy to me that Ryan Garcia is the one serving a year-long suspension, but he's found a way to return to action and box in front of people for money, while Devin is in limbo, buying ugly clothes.
Not doing nothing.
He should have fought. And so, this really would be a 4D chess move for Ryan Garcia if they can actually get this fight over the line, because anything with Jake and Ryan is bigger, many times bigger, than a rematch with Devin Haney or a fight with Teofimo. Anything as far as conventional boxing.
The Americans aren't into that.
So as a content creator, you gain unique insights into what moves the needle for what group of people. And in America, they really are more interested in dysfunction, drama, than boxing. Not necessarily the drama in the boxing ring, but on the perimeter of it.
The bickering, the arguing, the Twitter wars.
For an American audience, you can't just talk about what fights are happening because they're not interested in the vast majority of them. They're only interested in a handful of fighters and what they're doing.
The usual names.
Believe me, they don't care about Beterbiev versus Bivol and Undisputed, or even Fury versus Usyk and Undisputed. Traditional boxing, conventional boxing.
They don't care.
So in a fight like Ryan Garcia versus Jake Paul moves the needle more than a traditional title fight, a conventional title fight, well, that speaks to the audience.
They wouldn't put it together if there weren't already a market for it. It's the market that makes it big, after all.
Though how could anybody get behind fixtures like these, characters like these? What is there to like about them?
To like about Ryan?
The hate-filled tirade earlier this year I saw both Keyshawn Davis and Raymond Ford standing side by side with Ryan taking a selfie at the fights this weekend, and I didn't even know what to say, what to make of it, what to think.
Because you heard what Ryan said.
Then it dawned on me. This younger generation doesn't stand for anything. You can think that Keyshawn is a great young fighter, and so is Raymond Ford, but they are morally ambiguous. There is no code, no honor, and nothing to honor.
They don't stand for anything.
The younger generation here today don't stand for nothing, which is what makes it possible for Ryan to be an idol, or maybe Jake.
These are your idols.
So maybe things are coming full circle? Contrary to popular opinion, Americans did not invent boxing. Postmodern boxing is all based on the Marquess of Queensberry rules, and those rules came from England.
Not America.
And even if for a very long time America dominated the sport, this ain't your father's era of boxing. As the UK boxing market flourishes, the American one devolves into a circus.
Where a fight between Ryan Garcia and Jake Paul moves the needle more than anything else.
And not even because they're the best at what they do, because they're not. They're not the best at what they do. They're not the best in show. They're just known. And for these people, that's enough.
It's not about being the best anymore. Don't you notice that?
Don't you notice that it's the guys that try to be the best that the Americans really don't like? They don't really like Terrence Crawford, even though he's one of their own. They don't like Inouye either. They don't care for Usyk.
The guys who try to get the job done.
It's almost like they resent them because of their ambition, and how that ambition is not a reflection of the collective populace here.
It gets deep.
But the long and the short of it is that conventional boxing doesn't excite the American fight fan. Drama and dysfunction.
That's what they like.
Yeah, Ryan Garcia versus Jake Paul would be bigger than anything else going on in the American boxing scene. It would quite literally be the biggest fight in boxing if they made it, at least here.
Can they?
How do they bill it? This weekend's fight was not a pay-per-view. What made all of that possible was Netflix putting out vast sums of cash to do it. But Ryan boxes on DAZN. He's still under Golden Boy.
It's not just the weight they have to figure out.
Would Golden Boy Promotions be willing to let Ryan cross over to Netflix to do a fight like that? Because that could be big.
Huge.
If they do it the way they did the Tyson fight, if they don't put it behind a paywall, if they make it available to all of their Netflix subscribers, are you kidding me?
Massive.
And that's if they don't put it behind a paywall. If they do, and decide to bill it as a pay-per-view, it will still make money.
Lots of it.
Find out if they're serious about this.
Jake is a wanted man. Ryan Garcia wants him. Tony Bellew wants him. Farrell Crotch. Artur Beterbiev. Artur, who once again took to his Instagram stories targeting Jake
Paul, after 4 years, it's time to have a serious challenge. Didn't notice your acceptance or rejection, so what are we gonna do?
Artur's got a sense of humor.
I don't think most people notice that about Artur. He's got a sarcasm, a wit about him. I don't think he seriously means to get Jake Paul in the ring. I don't think he seriously expects Jake to accept his challenge. He's just putting him on the spot for an answer.
He's trying to force an answer out of this kid.
You like fighting, you want to fight, you want to box, I want to box you. Yes or no?
It's for the optics.
Artur Beterbiev is just trying to force an answer out of Jake for the optics. Are you going to accept this challenge or not? Are you limited to boxing 58-year-old retirees?
For people that are smaller than you are. People who don't actually box.
In truth, I feel that Artur is too much of an adult and too much on the straight and narrow to actually make Jake look bad. The audience that Jake appeals to, that younger audience, these are unserious people.
Children.
You're approaching this with a hard inquiry. A serious inquiry because you're a serious person and a serious fighter. Jake and his audience are anything but.
It's kind of like when you hear people say you shouldn't waste good logic on illogical people.
Don't expect an unserious person to take your serious inquiry seriously.
He's not stupid.
Quite the opposite. I think Jake Paul is smart. Very smart. 60 million households tuned in live for Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, with nearly 50 million for Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor 2 during the Netflix and Most Valuable Promotions mega event. It was a record-breaking night for Netflix. Additional viewership information, including total viewers, will be released early this week. 60 million households watched Paul vs. Tyson main event live around the world. peaking at 65 million consecutive streams. Nearly 50 million households globally tuned in live for the co-main event of Serrano vs. Taylor 2. Additionally, the bout is likely to be the most watched professional women's sporting event in U.S. history.
Jake Paul did that.
At minimum had a hand in it. Joe Hand Promotions, the leader in premium live sports and entertainment programming for the out-of-home market, also distributed last night's event to over 6,000 bars and restaurants in the United States, setting the record for commercial distribution of a combat sporting event in the company's 50-plus year history. Paul Tyson was the #1 trending topic worldwide on X on Friday, with Serrano at #2 in the US, Brazil, Spain, and Canada. The fight dominated social conversation, accounting for 11 of the top 11 trending topics in the US.
So many are looking at Jake Paul as the villain right now.
The bad guy, the guy everybody loves to hate. But there's another way to look at this. I said it in my previous video. There would not be a market for these kind of spectacles if the traditional boxers were doing what they were supposed to be doing, capturing the audience's imagination with their fights and taking risks, because that's what people pay to see.
The American boxer, over time, has become synonymous with risk-averse management, risk-averse matchmaking.
You'd think the audience doesn't notice until you notice that interest in conventional boxing has gradually declined in America over time, year after year.
HBO pulled out, Showtime pulled out, Fox pulled out.
The actual boxing people and the actual boxers, the traditional ones, there is some blame that you can assign to them, as they are the ones who left the door open for a Jake Paul to walk through it, a Misfits, a KSI.
When boxing is at its best, and what needs to happen is happening consistently,
you can't distract people with these kinds of spectacles, this kind of a circus. No, it becomes possible when what needs to happen isn't happening for too long a time and the audience gets bored.
That's it.
You know, I don't actually think that Jake Paul is the bad guy here. He's just the benefactor, the beneficiary.
He's benefiting from it, but he's not the catalyst.
Jake Paul is spearheading the reinvigoration of an entire sport, putting women's boxing and women's sports at the forefront of pop culture, building the brands of young prospects through MVP's Most Valuable Prospect Series, working with USA Boxing to onboard the next generation into boxing gyms, and rebuilding gyms across the USA with World Boxing Org through his charity, Boxing Bullies, to give kids a productive place to spend time. We would like to take a moment to honor all Jake Paul has accomplished and thank him for all he has given back to the sport, its participants, and the kids, young adults he's inspired along the way.
So what if Jake Paul isn't all bad? That is, what if he's willing to play the villain publicly,
piss people off and disrupt the established order, but simultaneously give back to the sport? Got Jadeja Green, not one, but 2 world title opportunities. He helped to get Katie and Amanda back in the ring with each other in front of an even bigger audience, a much bigger audience than before.
I don't understand.
Maybe Jake Paul is not the hero that boxing wanted, but he's the hero that boxing needed, as boxing in and of itself and all the dinosaurs and old relics in it were failing to appeal to a younger audience. He can. He does.
But what about all that stuff you said? About him being an unserious person?
Well, he's not actually serious about becoming a world champion in the sport of boxing, I don't think, but he is serious about business.
So when a reigning world champion in the sport approaches him with a serious inquiry for a fight, he's not going to take them seriously, because that's not his aim.
That's just a sales pitch. He's just using that to lure you in. And it works every time. He's a smart kid.
Good promoter.
There are several ways to look at this. Jake may be disrupting the established order, but in doing so, he is creating opportunities for conventional boxers, traditional boxers, and keeping boxing in the consciousness of the youth in a way that traditional promoters could not.
Might not be all bad.
Ryan. What about Ryan?
Ryan is a racist piece of shit. It would seem that he's moved on from fighting Devin Haney for a second time, which would have been a decent-sized fight in its own right, but not bigger than a Jake Paul fight, not by any stretch.
And so if Ryan is serious about this, and he might be because of the financial gains, if he's fighting Jake Paul next year and he's not fighting Devin, what does Devin do? Because Devin always needed that rematch more than Ryan.
As backwards as that might seem, that Ryan's the one that gets popped for a banned substance, he's the one that gets suspended, but Devin's the one that needs the rematch?
Devin's fall from grace throughout all of this has been monumental. Tabbed to be the next Floyd Mayweather before he even fought for an alphabet title. There were high hopes.
Dash.
I think it seems pretty clear to a lot of people now that even if Devin goes on to have a mildly successful boxing career, he is not the next Floyd Mayweather. What should he do in this predicament?
He's not going to get to fight Ryan. Who should he fight?
I think he should make it his business to go after Teofimo, a fight that pales in comparison in terms of size and scale and profile, but it's still a good fight, it's still a solid fight, and you can still sell it. What I said still stands. A part of the reason these circus fights have become appealing to the masses is because traditional boxing has become boring.
The fights that need to happen take too long to make. The fights you get are foregone conclusion fights. You know what's going to happen. You know who's going to win.
Talking about in America, not the United Kingdom. The matchmaking is still ambitious over there. Ho-hum over here. When a Gervonta Davis chooses to fight a Frank Martin instead of a Shakur Stevenson or somebody else, where everybody knows what's going to happen and it costs $80 to watch it.
In this economy.
And with piracy being what it is, conventional boxing becomes boring to the audience at large.
To a younger generation and to an older one,
They're stuck reminiscing about the past, the glory days of Mike Tyson, to the point they're more interested in seeing a 58-year-old Mike Tyson
trying to recapture the past.
than the soft, less than ambitious matchmaking of today, because that's what they're used to. Fights where you know what's going to happen more often than not.
To capture their imagination,
You need to make fights where the answer is not quite clear. Fights where you have to tune in to see, you have to watch to find out what's going to happen.
Lopez versus Haney.
Now, neither one of these two kids are as popular as Ryan Garcia, but simultaneously, they can't keep pretending that they are.
That is, they can't keep being difficult. They can't afford to.
There was plenty of time for Devin to squeeze in a fight before this year is out, and it seems that he's choosing to sit out. The same applies to Teofimo Lopez. You two ain't got it like that.
You need to fight.
You need to stop thinking of yourself as being on the same boat as this guy or those guys.
You're not. You ain't them.
You gotta fight. Your brand, as it stands, is not big enough. Teofimo Lopez has failed to sell out the Hulu Theater, for God's sake. And for as many times as Devin's been on pay-per-view,
3 in America.
you're not there yet. You're driving too hard a bargain. They need to fight. I think they need to make it their mission to fight each other, because Teofimo's not doing anything, Devin's not doing anything, and while you're not doing anything, nobody's really worried about you. They'll watch somebody else. The show must go on, and it does.
Case in point, Ryan might be fighting Jake Paul next year. You guys better get to work.